I think that Neuralink is implanting the wrong people. In a recent live stream, it was revealed that Neuralink's first participant, Noland can play video games using his Neuralink N1 implant, a brain-computer interface, BCI for short. Before I start, I want to say that I have the utmost respect for Noland, his family, and anyone else who willingly undergoes brain surgery to test experimental medical technology. Neuralink has claimed that their BCI technology could assist people with paralysis in communication, general computer control, and playing video games. And I've always found that last item puzzling, until now, because the current Neuralink system appears to be a gaming controller that rather inconveniently requires experimental brain surgery. Don't get me wrong, seeing someone play video games with their brain activity doesn't get old, even after almost 2 decades. But is this really the best application of the technology? Although Neuralink's current approach provides us with entertaining videos and Neuralink with publicity and subsequent investments, we need to ask ourselves whether this is the right way to do science and test experimental medical technology. People who could benefit most from Neuralink's technology may be left out. These are people with severe paralysis who, according to research, actually do not care much for playing video games, but are instead interested in communication and computer control. Why is Neuralink not implanting these people? Neuralink seems to be solving a luxury problem, at least in their first participant. After all, the difference between being able to communicate fluently and playing your favorite video games seems so much smaller and even trivial compared to the difference between being locked in your own body and being able to communicate. The potential improvement in quality of life is so much greater in the latter case. To me, the more ethical but also scientifically more interesting approach would be restoring communication in people with severe paralysis. Noland has quadriplegia, meaning he has no motor control over his limbs. Quadriplegia usually occurs after injury to the spinal cord, severing the connection between the motor control center, our brain, and the muscles. Subsequently, people partially or completely lose motor control and/or sensation below the injury site. People with quadriplegia can typically still speak, move facial muscles, breathe, chew, and swallow, because those motor pathways are not affected by the injury. Approximately 50 out of every 100,000 people has quadriplegia. I think we can make some predictions about the profiles of future participants based on Neuralink recruitment materials. The main clinical inclusion criterion mentioned in the recruitment brochure is quadriplegia, defined as limited function in all 4 limbs. Based on the brochure's description, people with some residual control over arms, hands, legs, and/or feet are also welcome to apply. This inclusion criterion of quadriplegia is very broad and also includes people with more severe paralysis, affecting facial muscles, speech, swallowing, etc. When I read the inclusion criterion of quadriplegia, I realized that participants would likely not benefit much from the N1 system. The reason is simple. The main functionality of the N1 system is basic computer control. However, most people who meet the inclusion criterion of quadriplegia can already control a computer using assistive technology. For instance, if someone can move or blink their eyes, they can control an eye tracker. Small hand movements can control specially designed touchpads, joysticks, or just a good old-fashioned iPad. Similarly, small movements of the head, chin, tongue, big or little toe, etc. can all be used to control different physical devices or even infrared sensors that detect minute movements. That last one was famously used by Stephen Hawking. Using just one movement of his cheek, he was able to control his computer. Even though that system was slow, it shows how powerful a single, reliable control channel can be. And then, of course, there is speech. Speech alone gives you pretty much full computer control, especially when combined with joystick or eye gaze control.
Computer?
So, reliable control over even a single muscle can allow a person to control a computer, communicate with their loved ones, and write best-selling books on the nature of our universe. If someone can already control a computer, what benefit is there to undergoing experimental brain surgery to obtain an alternative way of controlling a computer or playing video games? To me, it is clear that any person with sufficient motor control to use existing assistive technology, which is the majority of people with quadriplegia, will have no or minimal functional benefit from the N1 system. Noland has also indicated he has used and probably still uses alternative assistive devices for computer control. These never worked perfectly, but then again, neither does the N1 system. Moreover, those other devices did not require experimental brain surgery. I think practical benefit of the current Neuralink implant will be minimal for most people with quadriplegia. However, there are people who could benefit greatly from the N1 system. While quadriplegia is obviously severely debilitating, there are forms of paralysis that are more severe. Some people are paralyzed to such an extent that they cannot speak, eat, and, in some cases, even breathe. These people have only very minimal motor control, usually only in facial muscles, but they have intact cognition and awareness. This state is referred to as locked-in syndrome and usually occurs in people due to late-stage ALS or brainstem stroke. Although a portion of people with locked-in syndrome can control assistive devices, such as eye trackers or simple switches, a significant portion cannot reliably or comfortably do so. Approximately 1 out of every 100,000 people has locked-in syndrome. Research has shown that people with locked-in syndrome often have a relatively high subjective quality of life. The main contributor to quality of life is the ability to communicate. Imagine being unable to communicate and then getting a BCI that allows you to spell letters or select words and sentences. Research done in recent years has indeed shown that this is feasible and that home use of a BCI for communication purposes in people with locked-in syndrome can be very helpful and life-changing. In my view, the promise of present-day BCI technology is offering the relatively small group of people with locked-in syndrome a way to communicate. Wouldn't it be amazing if Neuralink actually gave someone with locked-in syndrome the ability to communicate with their loved ones? Instead, they have allowed someone to play video games, and I say that respectfully, being a gamer myself. Also, Noland has indicated that he was already able to play video games prior to receiving the implant, although not perfectly and just for a few hours at a time. My point being, the added benefit of the N1 system for people with quadriplegia is much smaller than the potential benefit it has for people with locked-in syndrome. While we're here, I'll make a little sidestep. Neuralink so far is not doing anything that hasn't been done before. Here is Nathan Copeland, a BCI participant playing Final Fantasy XIV with his BCI implant 5 years ago. The main goal of that trial was moving a robotic arm and sending sensory information from the arm back directly into the brain. Jan Scheuermann from the same trial controlled an F-35 simulator almost a decade ago. Let's recap. We've established that the N1 system offers rudimentary computer control, that many people with quadriplegia can already control computers and will receive relatively little benefit from the N1 system, and that there is a population of people with locked-in syndrome who can benefit greatly from present-day BCI systems. Neuralink so far has not indicated great interest in people with locked-in syndrome, and unfortunately, I think Neuralink will not implant people from the locked-in syndrome population. The fact that other companies and academic research groups also often implant people who don't really benefit much from the BCI doesn't change the fact that a better balance could and should be struck between the goals of the company and the potential benefit the implant offers to participants. Especially Neuralink, with its immense budget and reach, should be able to find the people who could benefit most from its technology and actually make a huge positive difference in people's lives. It is sad that they probably won't. Instead of focusing on the group that could benefit most from their technology, Neuralink so far seems focused on the group that benefits the least.